Ms. Tsikhanouskaya, welcome to Voice of America's News Center, and thank you for this interview.
Thank you for the invitation.
Ms. Tsikhanouskaya, I know you've been on American soil just a few hours, but do you have any impressions of the United States, your first impressions of America's capital?
You're right. I didn't have time to see anything, but I hope I will still a couple of hours to go somewhere to see what Washington is. But I'm sure I will like it.
I know you have a big agenda for this trip, so tell me, what is the purpose of it and who invited you here?
I was invited by American diplomats for visiting, and my main purpose, of course, is talk about Belarus, about the situation, about escalation of violence from the side of the regime, about people who are fighting for democratic values. We want to build new countries where values of freedom, of safeness, of human rights prevail, and it's a very difficult fight. But we have to be strong, we have to be scaleless to fight with this regime.
Mm-hmm. You're saying you were invited by the American diplomats. I'm assuming you're talking about the State Department extended that invitation, right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay. And in what capacity are you here then?
People call me differently, but I prefer maybe national leader of Belarus. I'm a leader of democratic Belarus because I'm a person whom people voted for on the last elections in August 1990, but regime stole this election from people, and but I got the mandate from people to represent them inside the country and on the international arena. It's impossible for me to be in Belarus at the moment because I will be imprisoned immediately, but people gave me this right to be their voice in democratic countries.
What are you trying to accomplish here? What would be an ideal outcome of your negotiations with American officials here?
So first of all, my people are suffering now in Belarus in this fight for democracy. I understand that with the help of democratic countries, for sure we will win. And I want the USA to keep Belarus on the agenda. When democratic countries, the USA will put attention to our problem, to our civil society, to our fight, for sure this way to democratic changes will be smoother and faster. And I want all the countries to pay attention to Belarus now, though I understand that there are a lot of different problems around the world, but we are fighting for the values that are common for the whole world. And I want the USA to be championship in this fight. Mm-hmm. I know how democratic values are important for the USA, and it's for sure it's their task to promote these values all around the world. And I'm sure that Belarus can be a success story, it will be, and the USA can be part of this. And this can be Mr. Biden's success story alongside with Belarusians. So I call on the USA to be with us, to, on the one hand, to put pressure on the regime, to hit the regime, and on the other side, to support civil society. It's very important when a regime is destroying everything in Belarus, destroying mass media, destroying all the organizations. It's extremely important to support all those people who show their braveness, strength and not give up.
Mm-hmm. I know that the issue of political prisoners is particularly close to your heart. Your own husband is still in prison. He's been there for the last 14 months. What else can the United States do to press on Lukashenko's regime to release political prisoners, including your husband?
To talk about this on different levels, on the highest levels, in different organizations, human rights defending organizations, always urge regime to start dialogue with civil society. This is our strategy, to counter these democratic changes peacefully, to show the role model for the whole world how it is to come from dictatorship to democracy in peaceful way. And I suppose that regime will release political prisoners when they will feel political and economical pressure, first of all. For many years, or for many months, we tried to appeal to the regime on diplomatic level through different organizations and through solidarity with the whole world, but regime doesn't want to listen to. And the only way out how to release prisoners is put political, economical pressure on them. And I'm sure that it will happen rather soon.
So you came here to build diplomatic relationships with US officials. You came here asking for American help, right? How do you see America's role in the world today?
America is one of the most powerful countries and the most powerful democracies in the world. And of course, they have to promote these democracy's values over the world, and together with other democratic countries to help countries who are still fighting for these changes to prevail. And again, we are coming back to the steps, putting pressure on the dictatorship regime and assistance to civil society. And we, of course, we are looking for justice, but these actions should be joined together with the European Union, with the United Kingdom, and because when you are joined, when you are united, you are more powerful.
Let's transfer back to Europe from the United States, travel back. Where is today the Belarusian protest?
Belarusian protests are in active phase, though the world doesn't see those huge, beautiful, peaceful demonstrations on the streets, but they disappeared not because people don't want to go out to show they strive for changes. It's happened only because of regime's violence, guns, and so on. And but people in Belarus are not giving up. They are using every moment to show that we are still here, we are fighting, we are not giving up. And those people who are in prisons now, there are thousands of people, they sacrificed with their freedoms, with their health, somebody with their lives, to give the rest of the people in Belarus and the world to continue this fight. And regime succeed in suppressing demonstrations, but they will never succeed in invading people's minds. And people in Belarus will not change their mind. They are not slaves anymore. And it's difficult, you have to understand how difficult it is to fight inside the country, because the level of violence is huge. People are really afraid for their lives, for their freedom, for their children, but they continue. We have rather many structures on the ground. They are underground now, secret structures, but they are working. Our workers are organizing in striking committees, and when the moment will come, they will be ready to go for national-wide strike. We have a wide network of volunteers. They are widespread information about the reality. They are widespread in so-called samizdat, it's self-made newspapers to promote our messages to those people who are lack of internet in villages. Our doctors, people of culture, students, sportsmen are also united, because every person, I suppose, in Belarus has a beloved or relative or friend who are in prison now. And these people understand that we are all responsible for their freedom and for their lives. And what is prominent, the people who are in prison now, they are inspiring us, because they that it's impossible to fight when you are in jail, but they send us letters from jail that we believe in you, that we know that we will succeed. So they are unbreakable.
Let me push a little bit back on that. So you're saying that the Belarusian protest is an active phase, right? But I mean, I don't need to tell you, a lot of your fellow politicians, opposition leaders, had to leave the country, including yourself. The ones that stayed behind are currently in jail, just like your fellow, your friend, Maria Kolesnikova. Journalists, independent journalists and media outlets, are shut down. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are kicked out from the country. The ones, again, that stayed, a lot of them are in jail. Who's going to galvanize that peaceful protest? Because it seems to me that nobody is really left in the country.
Oh, no, you're mistaken. So as our protest, as you say, almost the whole population of Belarus are involved in this protest. And yes, a lot of people had to flee the country because of the repressions. And it was usual strategy of the regime to make people out of the country where it's impossible to continue fighting. But previous year and this year are the different because, as I say, God bless internet. It's really easy to communicate to people who are on the ground through Zoom conferences and so on. And we are in constant dialogue with people who are in Belarus. We don't tell people what to do. People on the ground tell us what they want from us. And this is how it works. Even if you are abroad, though, I'm 30 kilometers from the border. I pretend I myself in the country. And we coordinate our actions. We listen to people, what they're ready to do, what not. And, all those protests in August and September and later months, they were all organized by the people. Everybody now is leader and can do what he or she can. And this is our strength. Even if something happens to me or other democratic leader, this resistance will continue. It's not about one person, one leader. It's about population of Belarus.
Mm-hmm. A huge part of this geopolitical equation and what's going on in Belarus is obviously Russia and Vladimir Putin personally. What needs to happen, in your view, for Vladimir Putin to drop his support of Alexander Lukashenko?
It's really pity that Kremlin supported regime. It means that it supported violence, supported tortures. But, we talking about Belarus, we don't have to talk about Russia. We understand that Lukashenko and Mr. Putin have long, it's not friendship, okay, long relationship, and they've got used to each other. And but while we see Lukashenko is toxic now for people in Belarus, he's toxic to democratic countries, to the West countries, and he's becoming too costly for Kremlin, politically and economically. And I don't know how we can persuade Kremlin to support Belarusians. We don't know how to do this, but we welcome Russia as the part of mediators at this round table of negotiations. And if they can be part of resolution. We ask them not to freeze our crisis, but to be the part of getting out of the situation, of resolving this crisis. Mm-hmm. We are always sending these messages to Russia that we are not looking for enemies. We are looking for allies. We want to build a transparent relationship with Russia, in future. And but we have to talk about Belarus, about our right to choose the president we want. And, that's it.
Who is Vladimir Putin, in your view, besides the fact that he's the president of Russian Federation?
He's the person who is supporting the regime in Belarus at the moment. I don't see necessity to discuss him now. we have to discuss Belarus question.
Okay, let's move on to Belarus. Do you think Alexander Lukashenko understands that he has lost that election, or he lives in this state of perennial cognitive dissonance and denial of facts?
I'm sure he understands that he lost control in Belarus. He isn't controlling people, he isn't controlling the situation. He's afraid of being betrayed even from his closest people. That's why he is, rotating people around him. And he still wants to show that he's a strong leader, but he isn't. Strong leader doesn't need to use violence to show that I'm strong, And he already lost this image of a strong leader, and he will never be able to gain it anymore. After the hell he made in Belarus, he lost everything.
And what about his closest cronies, his support group, the people that you said he keeps rotating around himself? Do they understand that he did lose, and what needs to happen for them to drop their support of him?
I had to say that the majority of people in nomenclatura and in secret force, they also want changes. But a lot of people around him are already committed crimes in Belarus, and they understand that they are responsible for everything, and they are afraid for their future. They are hands in blood, and people want them to be in fair trial, in front of fair trial. We should avoid impunity. But it's impossible to work in structures where everybody wants changes. And there are a lot of people who are helping us with information, with videos, audio recordings, with different documents. And all of them suspecting each other, and it's difficult to work. And the businesses that are beside Lukashenko also, they also see that he is not legitimate, he has lost control, and it's very costly to support him. And on the other hand, we want to show them alternative, that they would make their businesses in new Belarus, in future Belarus. They could be useful, and that European Union, the USA are ready to support new Belarus in the first years, because it will be rather difficult. And step by step, they will have to choose. And I'm sure that they will choose prosperous Belarus, but not Belarus that is that Lukashenko is destroying.
I'm really curious. So if a year, say, and 2 months ago, somebody, just a week probably before you registered as a presidential candidate in Belarus, somebody told you that just a few months later you'll be meeting Emmanuel Macron, Boris Johnson, Angela Merkel, possibly the American leaders, in person, what would you have said to those people?
Of course, I would laugh at such perspective, because I couldn't imagine myself at this place. I also, as the rest of Belarusians, were sure that there are so many of us, we were sure that we will succeed to win this fight rather fast, because it was evident when hundreds of thousands of people were on the streets, when workers went out of their enterprises to show that we want changes. We were ready to build new Belarus already in September, October. But so is because of this huge repressions and violence, our fight continued. So we had to look for support from democratic countries, and I became a person that represented Belarusians. And but I'm really grateful to the countries that didn't recognize Lukashenko as legitimate and accepted me as representative of Belarusian people.
I was speaking about you to someone just the other day, and they told me that Sviatlana in the last 14 months went through absolute pandemonium, traveled to hell and back. How would you describe this experience of your life in a couple of sentences?
Whew, you know, it was very difficult way, and it is difficult way. Every day from bringing my documents to Election Commission, I live in fear. And but I had to study a lot in very short period of time. But I had the best teachers, presidents, prime ministers, you know, diplomats, and I had to study international structures, how countries can help us in this fight. It was very difficult and interesting, but it is everyday pain. Though you are working hard, you are meeting with leaders, you understand that behind your back, people who are in jails, people who are scared to live in the country, and people stopped accepting me as a housewife, as a you know, a usual person. You know, they seen me a person who took this responsibility for the future of our country. But I have to repeat that it's not only me. I'm representing Belarusian people. It's only together we can win this fight. And you know, of course, I have changed. But talking to international leaders, I still don't feel like politician. I'm a usual person who wants a better future for my children, for Belarusian people.
What was the scariest moment in the last year for you? Do you remember it?
There were some. I think the first one when in pre-election campaign I got phone call when unknown person told me that you know, we'll put you in jail, your children will be put in orphanage if you don't stop this pre-election campaign. I overcame this moment, and the next one started, and it's continued until now, when regime started their violence. They beat so many people, tortured people, and when the whole world saw these, you know, blue bodies of those who were released from prisons, and it is continuing. This is scariest, the most painful moment, and I underline that it's still continuing, even if there is no like picture on the street.
How often do you speak to your husband?
I don't have opportunity to speak to him at all, the same as other people. All the relatives are communicating through the lawyers. Only you just send messages, and through letters, of course.
So he writes you from jail, right?
Yeah, he writes letters, and I always ask people from all over the world, write letters to political prisoners. It will take 10 minutes of your life, but it will make the whole day for those who are behind the bars. It's very extremely important. Please find the information about those people, choose one or couple and write letters to them. They are really suffering behind the bars. You see the temperature on the street. And people in Belarusian jail, they are lack of normal food, their lack of pillows, mattresses, normality. They are being humiliated physically and morally every day, and it's awful. And administration of prisons say openly, you are a political prisoner and you are going to die. You know, they awful attitude to wonderful people. And you know, people in jail now, IT specialists, doctors, sportsmen, activists, wonderful, outstanding people, and they are in jail, just imagine.
Yeah. Let's go back for a second to the States. Can you tell us if a meeting with the most important person in this country has been confirmed? Joe Biden, I'm talking about.
You know, I really can't supply you with this information, but I hope that I will have this opportunity to talk to Mr. Biden as a promoter of democratic values in the world. And of course, we are going, if we meet, I will tell him how the USA can help, but I know that he's very warm-hearted person. I want to tell him about all those people who are in jail, about their relatives, about how, despite of tortures and violence, they are strong, they are brave, they continue to fight. And I want to ask Mr. Biden, to promote Belarusian question in the world, to stand with us, to be braver and stronger and faster in helping Belarusians in this difficult situation.
And lastly, in all of this, what is the biggest glimmer of hope for you in all of this today?
This is Belarusian people who are unbroken, who in such situation find strength to fight, because we understand that we live in historic moment. Everything is in our hand, and their braveness, their inspiration gives me this hope and assurance that we will be able to win. But again, with the help of international community, this process will be faster and smoother, and we will be the country which could come to democratic changes peacefully, and we will build a new Belarus where freedom of word, safeness, dignity, human rights,
Rule of law
rule of law will prevail.